Red light.
Yeah.
Red light flashing. Sweet.
What's good?
Hey.
Welcome to the Other Side Cycling Podcast. Hello, Lucy.
Hello, Patrick.
How's it going?
Hello, listeners.
Hello, listeners. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. Yeah, I can't complain. Sun is shining. I'm really excited just to be sitting down and actually doing this. It's something we've talked about.
At least a couple of months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A good few months.
As friends, we've been ideating on this for a while.
We kind of started out as a joke almost. We were just joking one day, like, what if we did this? And we were like, wait, actually, this is what it could look like. The opportunity presented itself, and obviously we have put a lot of time and energy into it, but it's cool to be sat here today in this space making it happen. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. Thank you for tuning in.
Listeners, if you have any comments or suggestions about what you want to hear from us, we want to at least start this off by giving you a brief introduction of the concept of why we're doing this in the first place. Firstly, the title, The Other Side Cycling Podcast. Why is this the other side? Well, I'm from the other side of the country. We both live in LA now, but I'm from New York. I'm from the other coast. Lucy is from the other side of the colloquial pond. You're from
the other coast.
The other coast. The other ocean, right? So we're from the other side of the country and the other side of the world.
And also the other side of LA. So Patrick is kind of based on the east side or central, depending on how you look at it. And I am Venice, Santa Monica area. West side is the best side. I'm still trying to convince Patrick of that. Been in LA over 3 years now, and I love it for many different reasons. But the cycling here in particular is wonderful. The community is wonderful. The trails are wonderful. And there's the classic saying, LA sucks for cycling. If you know, you know. We've both been in the cycling industry for quite some time. How long has it been for you?
I would say around 8 years, I would say. Close to a decade. And I've done a lot. Not all, but I've done a lot. I think I started out just by commuting and just kind of like loving the bike in general. But then I became a bike messenger, transitioned into being a bike shop person, and after being in the bike shop and starting to develop that community, I think I've just blossomed from there. I've always loved the people that we interact with, and I think that's a huge part of this. I think it's similar for you as well, right? You've been in the industry for almost 10 years, maybe more.
Yeah, something around that. It's been a long time, but also a wonderful time. I actively choose to work in cycling because of the joy and the community I get from it. And it's taken me on some pretty cool experiences and also has contributed as to how I'm sat here today, I guess. It's cool to reflect back on. There's some amazing people, amazing communities, and amazing stories to tell. So yeah, this podcast is just going to be highlighting those stories, those experiences. We're going to be chatting about new product when they're launched. Not into too many details. I feel like there's some wonderful people that are great at that, but more just what excites us as average riders. Events that are going on in the US or further afield, maybe touching on sports in general.
This is just going to be a lot of chats about the things that interest us in general. Cycling definitely is going to take the forefront. I think without cycling, I would not have met you. So it's kind of incredible that the world has kind of brought us to this space to host this podcast together. And we just finished recording the first episode. So we kind of want to give you guys a brief rundown on what we talked about through the episode. You'll hear some repeat episodic topics. That is basically the format of every episode as much as we can. Not every episode's going to be the same. We're still kind of firing from the hip, trying to figure out this whole podcast thing. Yeah, I think the episodic topics, Lucy, if you want to run us through it.
So we have From Downtown. We're going to chat a little bit about the state of the bike industry. So it might be racing, it might be product news, it might be events. Then we move on to the staples section. So what have we been up to on the bike? And then finally, Transplant Talk. So moments from the week. We have some exciting stuff planned for this week, so let's get into it.
Yeah. I feel like we should kick off the From Downtown segment specifically talking about some huge news. The road cycling season has officially kicked off. Usually it's marked by Strade Bianche, pretty much. And of course, at this point, we all know Tadej won that in kind of amazing fashion, crashing spectacularly and all the best for his recovery. I'm sure he isn't listening to this, but maybe he is. And if he does, you're probably one of the best bike racers out there, Tade. Super cool to watch you win that by absolutely chasing back. Pidcock was kind enough to wait up for you, but for you to drop him in that fashion is insane. But there is also the women's.
Strade Bianche is one of my favorite races of the whole year. It kind of really signifies for me the kickoff of the core cycling season. I think if I was to ride any professional race, or just the course, not professionally, I would not last long. But if I was to ride any course, I think the white roads of Tuscany would probably be up there. Like, it looks stunning. Obviously, it's really hard, like most cycling races, but it just looks so stunning just going between like the vineyards and just getting caked in that white gravel. Like, let me at it. But yeah, special shout out to Demi Vollering for taking that win. She was hugely dominant in that race. I think other special mentions go to Anna van der Breggen, who has spent the last, is it 2 years? 1 year, 2 years?
I think 3 years.
Well, 3 years? Already. Wow, that's gone quick. But she retired from professional racing a couple years ago, took up a DS role.
Director Sportif, for those of you who aren't familiar with the abbreviation.
Thank you. For SD Works, and she's been inside the team car instead of on the bike the last couple years, and then has decided to get back on the bike again. So I'm sure that cannot be easy by any means, but it's really cool to see her first race back, or one of the first races back, that big race, and she was right up on the front there, which was really cool. Special shout out as well to
Pauline Ferrand-Prévot.
Yes, if you haven't heard of her, absolutely go check her out as well. She has spent most of her professional cycling life on a mountain bike, and she is incredible, supremely dominant on the mountain bike. She, I think, is maybe the only female rider to have ridden for Ineos Grenadiers. They sponsored her the last couple years, but she has made the venture into the road cycling world, and again, amazing to see her on the podium for Strade Bianche. Obviously, she's super strong. I'm sure there's a lot of language and racing from mountain bike that is very different from road racing, but the fact that she was up there, finished third, that was really, really cool to see. Do you know I had a dream about Demi Vollering the night before Strade Bianche?
So you're telling me that you predicted the win?
I think I did. Maybe I should have put some money down. But I had this dream, and I was skiing in Mammoth. This isn't the dream, like, this is real life. I was skiing in Mammoth. So maybe it was like altitude dreams. Maybe to add a bit of background, the day before Strade Bianche, Demi put out this post on Instagram that she had a new sponsor, and it was like a car brand sponsor, and it was Polestar. If you don't know Polestar, they're like a big electric car company. And I think I probably watched that Instagram reel like just before I went to sleep or something, because in my dream, Demi and I were just hanging out. We went for a drive in her Polestar around some European city. I can't put my hand on which city it was. But yeah, we went cruising in her Polestar and we were just hanging out. It was pretty fun. But then she had this other like weird concept car that had spring water machine. I don't know. It was this crazy concept car, kind of like a Batman car, still somehow a Polestar with an amazing entertainment system. And we were watching some cycling videos. And it was great. And then I woke up and saw that she had won Strade Bianche. So yeah, maybe I predicted it. Maybe I didn't. Yeah, I don't know what that tells me. Probably I should get off my phone before I go to bed.
I think it should also tell you something a little bit about how we consume cycling media.
Yeah. So. And, clearly the advertising is working because I'm shouting out Polestar and...
There you go.
Yeah.
I think even more relevant to us here in the States is that Paris-Nice, one of the bigger tune-up races, week-long stage race, was won by Matteo Jorgensen, someone who tends to ride out here in California.
Have you ridden with him?
I haven't yet, but I'm sure I will get a chance to. I know a few people who have, and he's clearly an incredible talent, and it's amazing to see an American at the top step. Not only that, but the final stage of that stage race was won by a New Yorker, Magnus Sheffield. Absolutely incredible effort from him. If you caught his end of race, post-race interview, he was very emotional, and I think as he should be. I think it was 3 years without a professional win for him, a World Tour win, and for him to take that and just to have a 1-2 finish for some Americans at a top level World Tour race, that's kind of incredible. There's not a lot of things that we can be proud of as Americans these days, but right now, in terms of sports and entertainment, I think that takes the cake for me as an American cyclist. So
yeah, and he dedicated his win to Gino Mater as well. I think it's been 2 years since he passed, and yeah, if you haven't watched the post-race interview, I encourage you to go find it on YouTube. It's great.
Agreed. Lucy, for you, the kickoff of the cycling season is a little different. I mean, you're from the UK, and so consumption of cycling is very different in that space. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about, I think there's a few things changing with Eurosport and such, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's been super interesting the last couple of years of me living in the US. I definitely have watched less pro cycling racing, and especially live, just due to the time difference. It's like 8 hours to the UK or 9 to Central Europe. And that has been tough, honestly. Maybe I could make more of an effort to get out of bed early, but it's pretty intense, especially if you're trying to fit in rides on the weekend too. But yeah, I mean, Strade Bianche always, for me, is like the real start of the cycling season. Obviously, you have the other smaller races or the races in the Middle East and stuff, but I think Strade Bianche is always the like, okay, here we are, let's go. And yeah, in terms of broadcasting, the UK is going in an interesting direction. The situation is Eurosport is no longer broadcasting cycling in the previous form that they have done for the past couple of years. Instead, it's a company called TNT Sports, and to be able to watch that, it's something like $30 you have to pay a month. And the cycling season is long. You know, we're talking about kicking off in February, March time. And for $30 a month, right up until like the end of August, beginning of September, depending on how long into the season you want to be able to watch it, that's a considerable amount of money. And I think it previously was around £13. Maybe I said dollars before. We'll just leave that in there. So yeah, it's a very interesting position on how people can consume cycling media, especially, in the UK where cycling is pretty big, but there's been some developments and changes over the last couple of years that's really having an impact on how people consume cycling. And then also you're thinking about the sponsors. There's a lot of British teams in the last couple of years that have folded. I'm talking about on the more like domestic, smaller scale level here. But if you're thinking about how those riders are then going to get into the Pro Tour, it's definitely going to hurt. There has been rumors in the last week about the Tour de France coming back to the UK, which is super, super exciting. That was definitely a moment for me that like really got me into cycling in the first place. I think it was 2013. The Tour de France came through Yorkshire, and it was like flipping incredible. It was so cool. If there isn't cycling racing easy to watch, then that's definitely gonna hurt. There's also ITV, which is a free to air or free to watch channel. It's part of like the main core channels that you get as part of your TV license in the UK. From 2026, they no longer have the rights to the Tour de France anymore. So that's like a really big change there. So there's definitely been a lot of backlash on the whole Eurosport TNT thing in the last couple months, and it'll be interesting to see if anyone kind of steps in or anything that can be done here to try change that. You think about how people watch cycling compared to tennis and basketball and football and rugby and everything else, and there's just so many more barriers to entry into accessing it.
Yeah, I mean, you actually bring up a really good point there with going back to the conversation of how long the cycling season is. In the United States, we used to have the Tour of California here. There used to be some pretty high-level stage races in the States. There still are, but they're few and far between, and they aren't on the scale of like the opening season races in the UAE. They're not, it's not, the Dubai Tour, the Alula Tour. There's also the Tour Down Under. Those things start pretty much end of January, and you're paying what, £30, £30, whatever, times 12, 360 a year. That's insane. That is a really, really high cost of entry. And then you aren't even getting access to every race possible. You bring up a really great point about basketball and other major sports. You know, in the US, we have the big four: MLS, NBA, NHL, MLB. Oh, wow.
NFL.
I said, yeah, NFL. I put soccer ahead, but when I have conversations with you, obviously, I'm thinking about football in that regard,
Yep.
not American football. I could care less about American football, to be quite honest. But they do a really great job of setting up consumption of the sports. Even if ratings are down, the NFL might be the biggest watched product of sporting in general in the world, and they have, you know, this kind of almost ADHD level of consumption where you have 4 screens at any given time watching every game from every angle, from you know, home broadcast, away broadcast, that kind of thing. League Pass does that as well. And cycling, we don't have that. We don't have a way to consume all that. It's a much longer event on any given day. Like cycling races, just in general, 4 hours for the actual race itself, and considering the distances that they're covering,
Yep.
I can imagine the cost of production for that. You need helicopters, you need drones, you need TV stations at both ends and all that. So it is a very costly sport to document, but it still would be great if we could have that product that stabilizes how we consume it. I mean, most of us, the point about having to wake up 8 hours early, or rather catch something that's 8 hours ahead of your time zone, we're just getting spoilers. As soon as we wake up, you know, I see the crash from Tade on whatever news is spreading that on my Instagram, or someone reposts that on their story. And even without, you know, knowing the result of the stage, I'm thinking to myself, if they're showing that, it's probably spectacular in that he got hurt, which that or he won. Like there's only 2 results from that from seeing that, you know, if it's that impactful, that's a highlight of the race. And it's like, okay, so what happens after that? Did he abandon? No, he probably won if people are like cheering about this, right? So it is hard to consume it. I get it's getting harder even in Europe, where cycling is such a big space. UK isn't technically Europe anymore, but
We don't need to talk about that.
that's different. That's different. But yeah, that is huge news. I think, you know, there's a lot to say about the professional cycling space, but there is also a lot of what's happening here in the US, local racing. I think there was a pretty big race, some big news that just happened over the weekend as we record this. Midsouth in Stillwater, Oklahoma, was a big tune-up race for a lot of gravel riders here in the States, and international level caliber talent sadly had to get canceled and postponed due to some pretty epic wildfires, natural disaster, insane winds. I think for us in particular here in LA, that's a little traumatic. It brings back a lot of memories for how we started the year. And, you know, Mid-South isn't exactly an event that we're watching, consuming the way that, you know, we want to consume the World Tour level races. That's not to say that it shouldn't be consumed that way. Gravel racing is awesome. But the coverage of everything that happened there is just through photos and video stories that I'm seeing on social media. And it is so sad to see another part of the country be so torn apart by fires after we just dealt with that for however many weeks on end, and it's still something that we're recovering from. So my thoughts and our thoughts are with the families out there in Oklahoma, a great portion of the county that Stillwater is in, that the race was being held in. They're under some duress. So we'll share some links in the video description and on our Instagram to kind of help their GoFundMes for their recovery efforts, I'm sure.
Yep. And I think touching on that, it was cool to see how people reacted to it. From what I saw anyway, everyone seemed to understand the importance of cancelling the race. People prepare for these races, whether you're a professional or whether this is like one of your sportif or challenges for the year as an individual. People spend a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money investing and leading up to these things. It's obviously disappointing for everyone, but I think it was really cool to see that there wasn't any backlash or any people that didn't understand, to see some good positive stories. Actually, a lot of good positive stories, but let's highlight a couple in particular. So first off, there's Jacob Keane, who has this amazing story. He sadly lost his leg in an accident last year. That was just after Midsouth in 2024. And there's an amazing photo of him at the finish line doing a bunny hop, kissing his front tire. And he went out and rode the course. There was like a party thrown for him, and he raised money for the charities, I believe, as well. You said you'd met him?
Yeah, being from New York, Jacob lived in New York, and he would pass through my bike shop every now and again that I was working at. And I knew him when he did have both functioning legs, and I think it's incredible to hear that, you know, he's made enough of a recovery to continue to pursue fun on the bike, and that was always what I knew him for. Like, you know, I think it's an incredible story, and seriously, kudos, hats off to him for completing his challenges and, you know, persevering through all that. I can't imagine the mental stress and the physical strain of, you know, losing a limb, but it's an incredible story of human resilience. And, you know, he's still an amazing bike handler. I imagine you don't lose those innate talents with the loss of a limb.
I was on Instagram over the weekend and I saw Meg Fisher put up a story like, hey, Jacob's doing this ride. If you are in Stillwater, if you're around town, come down to the finish line. Let's welcome Jacob home. And it was really cool. Like, I'm getting emotional thinking about it. Those moments in cycling and bringing community together and celebrating people are so cool. One of the many reasons that I am a big cycling fan. And then 2 other quick mentions to Chase Walk and Ted King for completing the fastest known times. Again, they were raising money for the wildfire relief and kind of did this on a whim. I think they wanted to do something good and all the bad that had happened. They put in some incredible rides. For more information and kind of background on all of these stories, go check out the Midsouth Gravel Instagram account. You can see content from the event and more information. And then, as Patrick mentioned, you can also donate if you so wish.
I think that actually brings us to our next segment, the staples. Things relevant to here, specifically in LA. We mentioned the wildfires and the impact that that had on Midsouth. I think it goes without saying that the wildfires here in LA, these unprecedented Santa Ana winds that kind of took over Los Angeles in early January, have had some really lasting impacts on how we as a community, as a city, have come together and adapted. It's had how many lives have had to change and adapt in the months or the weeks since that. It feels so far removed now, but we're still dealing with that on a daily basis. There's going to be a lot of overlap now for West Side cycling community to come to the East Side, and we're going to have to come together and share a lot more spaces together. The West Side riding is so beautiful, but I don't feel comfortable going over there to ride just yet, just out of respect to the first responders who are still cleaning things up. Lucy, you live over there. I'm sure you have a take on riding on that side of town.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely missing the gravel trails on the West Side. Like, that's one of the things I really love about living on that side of town. You know, I can ride my bike and within 15, 20 minutes, I'm on amazing roads that are really quite quiet, and then 5 or 10 minutes on from that, I'm in like stunning nature, scenery. Yeah, there was some simple rides that I'd love to do, like before work or at lunchtime or just as the sun sets. And then also you can just go ride for the whole day and get lost in a good way. I'm definitely missing it. However, I completely get that it's important to let nature heal, let the recovery efforts that need to happen still happen, and when it's time, it will be time. This is a really good opportunity. I have to put my hands up and admit this is quite bad. I've lived in LA 3 years and I really haven't done much riding on the East Side. So this is an opportunity for me to like venture a little bit further out. And it's hard because the riding on the West Side is so good, and that was always my excuse as to why I hadn't been over this side. But I'm going to use this opportunity to explore more, get on some new trails, head towards some different areas, ride with different people, and yeah, excited for that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see you at more of my local rides as well. I think having you come out to my side as kind of balance for when I come out to your side, it's going to be awesome. We also have had some pretty unprecedented rain immediately after. There's a lot of landslides and mudslides and all that kind of stuff that impacts the spaces that we ride in as well. The land is so fragile after, all that kind of rooting that has been holding the land together is just obliterated by flame. I'm sure the land is rife for new life to come in, but it's hard to get access to these spaces when it's all mudded out. So I think you've also been riding on the indoor trainer a little bit.
Yeah. It was such a interesting conflict. It was like when the fires were happening, I was like, oh, if only it would rain. If only it would rain.
Seriously.
And then it rained. I'm like, okay, rain is great, but please don't rain too much because that could have really bad impacts the other way. And as a English person, the rain, I think I'm just still scarred. Like when it rains in England, it might just rain for 3 weeks and then that's it. So if you're like, oh, I'm not going to ride my bike because it's raining, you might never ride your bike. Whereas in LA, when it rains, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to wait for this to pass. And then maybe I'll go out tomorrow instead because the roads will be dry and it's all going to be okay. But I have been making use of my Wahoo setup. I have an amazing indoor setup with the Kicker Move. I'm not trying to make this into an advert, but shout out to Wahoo. I guess I should specify I am an ambassador for them for this year. They set me up with a Kicker Move, the Kicker Climb, Kicker Desk. I've really been enjoying putting some time back on my bike again. I have to admit, it's something I've kind of neglected over the last year for a couple different reasons, just life getting in the way. But it's been really good to add some consistency back into my training, ensuring I can still ride even when the weather's not great or before the clocks changed here in the US. So I've been really enjoying that and just bringing a little bit of structure back into my life again. Also, I've been trying to do a little bit of running, like a lot of other people in the cycling community right now. I live by the beach where I can just go for a 30-minute run along the boardwalk. It completely knackers me out, and I'm like, cool, done.
Yeah,
I'm one of those people.
I mean, cross training is huge. Being able to do more than just the one sport that we exist in. I can't run to save the life of me, but we'll get to that later. I think I've taken a very different approach to getting back into training. I think I'm probably at a level of fitness that I don't think I've experienced before, just because here in LA, barring the fires and barring the rain in this rainy season that we have, which I think comes around yearly, I have been able to ride more than ever before. And I've just been finding myself just out on the roads. I think I'm on pace for 10,000 miles for the year and 500,000 feet climbing. And already on pace for that.
I need to up my game.
I mean, the Kicker Climb, you can still get that elevation, right? But that brings into conversation kind of how I've been able to do that here on the east side. I think there's a lot of community here that is willing to get together at any given time, any time of day, even just the flexibility of people in LA, to go for bike rides and just put hours in, whether that's for specific training or just to have a social time. We still get to fit that into our life. And for me, being at this level of fitness, I think you and I are both kind of searching for different things when it comes to riding our bikes, but that doesn't mean we can't ride together, right? I'm not necessarily trying to get back into racing, but I would say that I think I'm in racing form. Shout out to Andrick Shreddy Pendergrass on YouTube. There's a fun little short of me letting loose on a fun segment that we like to do on the weekend rides, where Roldan, shout out to Ride Bold, he just chases me back down and I launch a sprint and he comes around me. And, what you don't see from context of those videos or those shorts is that we had a conversation earlier in the ride, like, hey, he's going to do some openers on this because he's racing the next day. I'm not racing. And so you just get a soundbite of me saying, I'm not racing, bruh. But you kind of cut to that launch of sprint, and it's just like, dude, I'm just having fun on the bike, and of course he's gonna beat me. The dude's actually training to race, and I'm just having fun on the bike. And I think that's huge. Like, no matter how you're getting those miles in, no matter what you're training for, the most important thing is that this is an enjoyable hobby to be doing and to have the luxury of time and space to, enjoy. And kind of bringing this back to where we were, I've been getting caught in the rain a lot lately in this rainy season, and I'm super jealous that I don't have my trainer set up for me to just easily throw my bike on and go for a ride indoors when I know that there's a threat of rain, or I know that the weather app is going to lie to me about the when it's going to rain. That should take us into our final repeat episodic topic, Transplant Talk. A lot of people were in town for the LA Marathon. Like Lucy said, you take up running.
Yeah, I mean, a marathon is a long, long way off, and that's not a goal I have in mind, but you never know.
Not necessarily a goal of mine either, but there are a lot of people that we spend time with who successfully completed the marathon and reached their goals, which is, it's amazing to see. And to see how large of an event the LA Marathon is. I think it averages 20,000 participants every year. I've been lucky enough in every city that I've lived in to actually live on the marathon course. Like in New York, I lived right by the Queensboro Bridge, and they run up over the Queensboro Bridge, so it was impossible to get out of my apartment there. And again, here in LA, impossible to get out of my apartment here.
Are you complaining?
No, not necessarily. It's really cool to get to cheer on your friends and to get to see just people pushing themselves to the limit. There are bigger running events like ultras and such, but the marathon is just the pinnacle of that part of that endurance sport. It's just it is something that everyone can relate to. Everyone knows that that's an almost impossible task to do without any training. So every single person who took that on dedicated so much time to preparing for that. I'm never going to do one. You might do one day. Yeah, right?
I'll never say never, but for now I'm trying to focus on my cycling again and kind of keep a little bit of running in there. I mean, seeing a marathon, I didn't actually go see it on Sunday, sadly. I saw a lot of stuff on Instagram and gone to see the London Marathon a number of times, and just I love cheering people on and seeing people crush their goals, or just, actually doing something they've been working towards making happen for the last couple of months, or maybe even years. In that sense, the vibes looked amazing. LA really came out by the looks of it just to support the community. A little note on that, there was the marathon crash ride, which for people who don't know, basically, I think you have to start it at 3 a.m., something like that. But you basically get to ride the marathon course, closed roads, and thousands upon thousands of cyclists that get out and do it. Mm-hmm. And I really regret not doing that this year. It looked so much fun. And one, you get to be around all those other cyclists, but two, traffic-free roads in LA is a dream. Yeah, absolutely on my list to do next year. Speaking of running, my brother ran a marathon the other week.
Oh, sick.
And he didn't do an official organized event marathon. He just ran a marathon.
That's insane.
Yeah.
How long did it take?
Can't remember the specific time, but it was impressive. He's been kind of getting into running over the last couple of years, and I'd say I've always been the active one between me and him. It's been cool to see him find running, but he literally did no warning whatsoever. Had just slid into the family group chat, just his Strava time, and I'm like, okay, I just got out of bed.
Nice.
So shout out to my brother as well.
There were a couple of different things in the marathon that I wanted to touch on. There was a big presence of Pokemon at the marathon.
Really?
Yeah. I mean...
In what way?
I was just looking at a lot of the local stories, and people were opening packs on the run and after. They're getting these booster packs, trying to get something good. I thought my friend and I who ran it, my friend Alex, there's a video of me handing off a pack of Pokemon cards to him, and I ran alongside him for a couple of blocks while he opened it. Kudos to him. That's really hard coordination when you're in the middle of a run. I thought we were, I'm not saying that we're special. We're the only ones who have done it and that no one else would be doing it. But I didn't think that many other people were doing that. There were so many people like flashing Pokemon cards through the thing. As a nerd, that was cool. Like in an athletic event, for us nerds to have a moment to have fun is awesome. I think that's great about running.
You planned that out, right? The handover?
We did plan that out. I wonder how organized the other handoffs were.
You could switch it up, and he does like a bike handoff Pokemon thing. You'd have to do something epic, the equivalent of running a marathon, but on a bike. I don't know, 200K, something like that.
Oof, 120 miles-ish. I think it's a little more dangerous to open Pokemon cards while riding a bike.
Mid-ride is pretty hectic. Imagine if he just surprised you at, you stopped at a gas station to grab some more water, get some snacks, and he was just there all of a sudden like a genie.
Yeah. I wish I had some Pokemon cards right now. I'm ready to bonk, but maybe I can take one of these energies and it'll actually get me up.
I feel like I missed a trick. I should have had some in my pocket just in case. Just in case. What else do we have?
So from stories that are from our hometowns, I think one thing that actually hit me pretty hard was that the bike shop that I worked at in New York City for almost 4 years, Hilltop Lower East Side, formerly a family-owned bicycle shop, then owned by a big box brand, was shut down over the last week. It came as quite a surprise. I still had some friends who were working there. It was always a small operation, but to hear that it closed, someplace that I put so much time and effort into when they first opened, I wasn't sure whether I should shed a tear or just pour a drink out for them, but that's huge news. Like Hilltop inspired a lot of riders who I actually even know here to really get into the sport. I think we did a really great job at that shop, kind of building community that kind of, exploded out of New York at a lot. Pour one out to those guys. If you know them, if you know the people who were working there at the time that it closed, hit them up, see if they need any help. I'm sure that transition wasn't easy for them.
I think it's sad when any shop closes, especially obviously a cycling shop, but like a brick and mortar shop, they don't just sell bikes, but they add so much. It's a place where if people are confused about why something isn't working, or hey, I want to have a 50-mile loop, where should I go, that sort of thing, they offer so much to us. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it is a lot. I think that it shows the importance of your local bike shop. There are certain places that need to be there as a cyclist, and supporting the smaller shops is always going to be your best bet to get quality service and quality advice, because usually the people who are working there have been doing it for a long time or are actually passionate about the things that you're asking them. If you show genuine interest and you're not just trying to, finesse the best deal, you're going to build a great relationship with these people, and they're going to help you out. So
people do it because they care, and that's how I'm kind of sat in this chair right here today. My first job was working in a bike shop. Initially, it was just so I didn't have to move back home to my parents after university. But then I was like, wait, there's actually so much more to this, and I was kind of hooked. Definitely sad, but hopefully people are okay.
Yeah. Speaking of hoping that people are okay, Monster Track just happened. Monster Track is an annual fixed gear event, brakeless fixed gear event. People from around the world actually kind of dawn on Manhattan, tackle, I think it's 2 manifests, so 2 different sets of checkpoints that you need to complete in a certain order. Maybe it doesn't matter what order. I haven't personally done it, but I know a lot of people who have. And it was won this year on the men's side by, his name is Lalo Reynoso. He is a Mexican bike messenger from Queens, so shout out to Queens, my hometown. It's an incredible achievement for him to have won that. And on the women's side, Emma Misale, I may be mispronouncing her last name, she took that and bodied it as well. Those two, it's really impressive to win, no matter who you are. So shout out to both of them. Incredible. Did you ever ride track bikes?
I have a fixie that I built up with a frame that one of the first bike shop I used to work at, it was one of their frames that they made a couple of years prior. So it's a very sentimental bike. And I used to commute on it a little bit, and it's nice, especially in winter in England, when your bike just gets absolutely destroyed by weather and salt on the roads and everything else. I recently brought that back to LA. I went to ride it to the farmer's market. How very LA. I got hit in my street and got a puncture, so I went home and took my other bike. I do need to start riding that more because they are just so much fun to ride. I do have a front brake on it just in case. I live up a tiny hill.
Safety first.
There's a lot of people I know that have got into cycling through single speed, fixed gear, just because it's cheaper and it's like a nice entry way and it's fun to commute or get about town or have a bike that you can look up. They have a special place in my heart.
Same here. I spent a couple winters as a bike messenger in college, and having access to cycling, we talk about how expensive it is. Track bikes might be the cheapest way if you don't go into the full fixie-foo realm of it. You know, you don't need carbon rims or the nicest chain rings and cranks. Or
you don't?
Bars. No, never.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bike in its simplest form. A frame, you have a handlebar, a stem, a saddle, hopefully.
Tires.
One gear. Yeah, well, I don't need to list every single thing on a bike. That would be a test. Yeah, it's the bike in its simplest form.
Comment down below if you think you need a track bike in your arsenal, especially here in LA. I'm curious to know how many people think a track bike is a necessary bike for their arsenal.
It's nice to have.
It's nice to have. I've been thinking about getting one again just for the fun of it.
You should.
Yeah, just to get around town. A special shout out, I think, is in order for our friend Mitch Boyer. Some of you may be familiar with this space that we're recording in. Mitch was kind enough to allow us to moonlight in this space for a little bit as we got this podcast started. It's a testament to the LA community and how incredible and how kind people are in this space that we share. And we can't thank him enough for letting us moonlight here. Seriously. Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you, Mitch.
If you are listening to this podcast here, you should probably go tune into his podcast, How to Drop Your Friends. It's available on Spotify and all other streaming platforms and YouTube as well. So feel free to give that a listen. He has really great insight into a lot of local LA riders and other people that exist in this community, and it's worth a good listen.
Yeah, absolutely. That ends today's episode, I guess. The first one. Nice one.
So good.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Other Side Cycling podcast. We're going to be trying to put out episodes weekly, hopefully on a Wednesday. That's the plan. We really appreciate anyone that's taken time to listen or watch, and we're super excited for next week's episode. The guest will be the big guy himself, Mitch Boyer. We're excited to talk to him, get to know him a bit more. Please tune in next week. If you don't know who Mitch is, some further background. He's an amazing YouTube creator within the cycling space, big person within the LA cycling community. So if you have any questions for him, pointers for us, sharing your thoughts, suggestions, opinions, you can shoot us a message, shoot us an email. And if you're watching on YouTube, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below there.
Sweet.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.